This video is sponsored by Rockstar. So today we are going to be learning the Caveman. Now the Caveman popped up in one of my earlier videos where I covered 5 kind of easy tricks that you can try right now to progress your skateboarding, and that was aimed at beginners. You can find a link to that in the description if you're interested. So in that video I covered how to do a Caveman while stationary, and then mentioned that I was going to cover how to do a Caveman while moving, and that's what this video is all about. So let's start with the foot positioning. Now do bear in mind that my board is going to be a lot shorter than yours because it's a freestyle board, so it's about 27 inches instead of 32, but with that out of the way, we're going to go over where to place your feet. So the back foot is around here, just on the bolts, on the tail, doesn't really matter, and the front foot is about here, just below the the bottom 2 top bolts there. And it's important to keep your foot near the edge of the board for this because you're going to be stepping off. That's it, come back to me, my minion. I have the feet placement out the way. I'm going to break this trick down into several steps for you so that it's easier for you to learn. And the first step is learning how to step off your board first while it's stationary and then when it's rolling. So it should look like this. Okay, so it's very important that when you're learning how to step off, that you learn how to step off while keeping your back foot on the board without popping the tail. Now, I'm not going to lie, this is going to sound super easy, but it's not, and it's going to feel really, really strange to actually commit to that first when you're stationary and then when you're moving, but that's the first step, because you've got to be able to step off the board with your front foot in order to pop the board with your back foot later on. But in order to learn that, you've got to learn how to step off your board without popping and without stepping on the tail. Once you have that step down, the next step is learning how to pop the board up and catch it. And this is probably the most difficult part of learning how to do a rolling Caveman. Now, I'm not going to lie to you, you're going to get a lot of sore fingers trying this, simply because you're going to have to figure out how much pop to put into the tail, how high you need to pop your particular board with your board shape and board length and stuff like that, and how to actually catch the board with your front hand. And it might, again, this sounds easy, but for a beginner skateboard or someone that's just getting back into it, it's not as easy as it first seems. And so this is going to be where most of the practice for the trick is going to come in. So most of this is just trial and error and popping the board up with your back foot. So when you step off with your front foot, you want to pop the board with your back foot. But you want to wait until the board is level with your front foot if you're rolling. But because we're learning this step by step, we're just going to do it stationary and learn how to pop up the board and catch it. And so just put your board out right in front of you and experiment with popping. Now, for my board in particular, and most boards, you'll want to pop in the middle of the tail, just in line with the bolts here, because too far to the left and too far to the right, and your board's going to do like a varial that way or that way, almost like a shove, a front shove and a back shove, and that's you don't want that. You want the board to pop straight up, kind of like an ollie. And the way to do that, again, is by making sure your foot is in line with the bolts, but you also want to make sure your foot is perfectly horizontally placed across the board and across both pockets. So your heel should be just above the the inside pocket, and the ball of your foot should be just above the outside pocket, and that's the kind of perfect foot placement for popping the board to catch it. And so a lot of this process is trial and error and learning how to pop it. And so what you want to do is start by kind of standing back and then just popping the board with your foot to kind of get a gauge of how much pressure and force you need to put into that tail to pop it to the right kind of height. And you want to pop it to kind of hip level. What I mean by that is you don't need to level it off like an ollie, you just need to pop the nose to roughly hip level so that you can reach down and grab it with your hand. So I'm going to show you what that looks like right now. So as you can see, I'm popping the board with just enough force that it kind of comes up into my hand. Too much force and it's going to come up too quickly, and it's going to, it's going to hit you either on the shin or on the knee or on the hand, and that's going to hurt. Too little force and it's not going to pop high enough for you to be able to catch it. So it's a balancing act about finding where to place your foot for your board and how to pop it. Try the foot placements that I've shown you. That usually works for kind of most skateboards, no matter the size. After you've mastered those two steps, learning to step off while stationary and then step off while moving, and after learning how to pop it into your hand correctly, it's about chaining those two things together in a smooth motion, and that's where the Caveman comes in. Like I explained in the other video, once you have your board in this position, you want to swing it back and forth, and your back foot is going to be the one that catches the board first, and you want to catch it over the bolts. As soon as the back foot is able to catch it, the front foot just follows through onto the front bolts, and you've essentially learned to Caveman. I break this down more in my other video, but for the sake of this video, essentially what you're going to be doing is you're going to be catching it with your back foot, so swinging it and then catching it. And so the stationary Caveman, it should look something like this. And now comes the hard part, which is chaining those three steps together in a fluid motion. So that's stepping off with the front foot, popping with the back foot into your hand, and then Cavemaning back onto the board while rolling. Now this is going to take some practice, but it's definitely a trick I would recommend learning, simply because it's a good thing to throw into a line, to chain your lines, and it's also a good alternative to the ollie when you're trying to get up curves or over obstacles and you can't quite, pop that ollie consistently enough. So if you get this trick consistent, it's very good for being a substitute for the ollie. And for the past 2 years, I've learned to ollie, but I can't ollie very well. So for the past 2 years, that's essentially been my ollie. So all strung together, it should look something like this. And now I'm going to show you what it looks like to go over a few obstacles using the kind of rolling Caveman. And that is the rolling Caveman. I hope you enjoyed this little video. If there's something you're particularly struggling with, be sure to drop a comment and let me know, and I'll help you out, because this can be quite tricky, especially with the pop and the catch to then, Caveman just on stationary, never mind, over something. And it does take practice. So don't get disheartened if you can't pick it up within, a week or two, or even, 3-4 weeks, because it does take a lot of practice, especially if you are new to skateboarding. And I personally love this trick. It's so versatile, because once you learn how to do, the normal Caveman, you can then throw countless variations in. So you can finger flip it, you can, Caveman to switch, you can Caveman to cross foot, Caveman to one foot. The options are endless with this trick. So if you enjoyed the video, please leave a like and subscribe, because it does help. I want to try and reach 500 subscribers by the end of the year. That's my goal. So if you could help me out with that, I would really appreciate it. And have a good day. Bye-bye.